Okay, so let me jump into the notes, and then this is called the wow factor, and then in the second half of the class we can talk a little more to Q&A. So basically, when you think about planting a church, a life-giving church, life-giving is a key phrase in the ARC culture. Because if something isn't life-giving, what's the opposite of life-giving? It's life-sucking, it's draining. It's like death. And unfortunately, if you ask the average Irish person of their experience of a Christian church, if you were to ask them, was their experience life-giving, or was their experience life-sucking, I would imagine, without any research done on this, that more people than I would like to think of would actually say, well, it actually was life-sucking. In other words, I didn't get anything out of it, it wasn't really relevant, it didn't really make a difference in my life. So we want to plant church that are life-giving. Why? Because we believe Jesus is life-giving. Amen. We believe that when he was on the earth, and you can read this in the Gospels, people came to him. He attracted people. He attracted people by the thousands. Not that they were all perfect Christian disciples, not that they'd all been through Bible college or had their degrees in theology, or they had, there was something about Jesus that was attractive. And that attractional thing ultimately was the fact that he is life. He was God. His words were life. Being in his presence was life. His miracles were life. He's life-giving. He is life-giving to this very day. And so as the church, we want to reflect the Jesus that we worship. We don't want to say in our church plants and in our church services that we worship a life-giving Jesus in a life-sucking way. Yeah. That confuses people. If Jesus is life-giving, then we got to reflect that in what we do. So as we think about planting life-giving churches, an important factor when you plant is the wow factor. And this pertains mainly to Sundays. The wow factor, W-O-W. Because the thing is about the Western world, particularly Ireland at the moment, people still get going to church on Sunday. Like, Ireland isn't so post-Christian. That Sunday is just another day. It's moving that direction, but people still kind of just, if you ask people what day of the week is church day, they'd say Sunday. It's just a given normal thing in our culture. And so we want to use that to our advantage as we try to reach people. So as you plant a church, as you think about this particular philosophy, Sunday is a very important component in reaching people for Jesus. I actually believe, and we believe in our church, that it is the most important platform we have to reach people for Jesus. We in the past thought it was the other way. We thought, when I first moved to Navan, for many years, I tried to do the opposite way, where the Sunday experience was a Christian experience, where the gifts would flow, the prophecy, and Christians would come, and we'd gather for 3 hours, we'd have 55 minutes of worship, and it was glorious, and it was wonderful. And I thought that, Christians would get inspired, and the presence of God would fall, it'd be awesome. And then I thought that all the non-believers would come through our small group system, because we did like a G12 kind of small group. You invite your friends to a small group, and you go to 12, and then you do another one, and another one. The problem was, after 2 or 3 years, no one was coming to Sunday, no one was coming to small groups, no one was getting saved, the church wasn't growing. And so that caused me to really think about our philosophy of ministry, and realize that actually it was an easier ask for someone to come to a Sunday experience than it was to turn up at some random Christian's home. So then we realized that, then we started asking the question, well, how can we steward then? If we can get them there, how can we steward that hour and a half that we have with them? How can we steward the opportunity to reach them with Jesus through our Sunday experience? And so we're thinking very, very specifically about that. And one of the things that we realize, one of the things you're going to realize and maybe you realize this as you're involved in church, is that you never get to make a first impression a second time. It just is what it is. You can't make, you just don't get a second chance to make a first impression. When people come to our church, believe it or not, the first impression isn't made by the welcome team. It isn't made by the worship. It isn't made by the host or service leader. Guess what their first impression is made? The car park. Absolutely. The minute people arrive on site, the guard is up, the eyes are on, they're now in kind of like suss out mode, trying to suss us out. Yeah. We actually had a video testimony on Easter Sunday of this middle-aged Irish guy, and it was brilliant because, as he said, he's like, came along just to suss them out. You know what I'm saying? It's a real Irish thing. It's like suspicious, you know what I mean? Trying to figure out what's going on. From the minute they pull into the car park, they're making decisions. They're making decisions about us, about God, about the whole experience. They're making decisions subconsciously about whether or not they're going to be open to the message they're going to hear in 30 minutes' time, just by how the car park goes. In fact, to even stretch it a bit further, some church leaders in dialogue and so on are talking about how the goalposts are even changed again, because now the first impression isn't just the car park, it's the website.
Yeah. Yes,
because before they even get to the car park, they go onto the website. So if your website is irrelevant and outdated and badly run, then that is the first impression. And they haven't even gotten there yet. And of course, one of the challenges for the preacher is, well, their first impression is the website, then the car park, then the welcome team, then the kids thing, then they have the worship, then the... By the time I get up and say something, there's already been 10 impressions. Mm-hmm. So I can't just get there and preach a great message. I got to make sure, as a leader, as a church planter, that all the impressions that can be made are being made in the right way, as much as we can possibly control them. One of the things that we talk about in ARC is the importance of a launch Sunday, and so very different to most church planting models or methodologies. We don't start in a home. We don't start with a Bible study. We don't start in a prayer group or a connect group or small group. We start with a Sunday. So when someone launches the ARC, they go through the training, they get the funding, they're given 6 to 9 months to prepare, and we literally launch a full church experience for this very reason. Because if you're trying to grow a church, and I said this before, it takes extraordinary grit and tenacity, and you said, Gary, hard work to pull a church out of a city, to pull a church out of a hotel. It just takes incredible, it's God, and it's God's sovereignty, it's man's responsibility and tenacity somehow working together. And a lot of churches never get out of the sitting room, they never get out of the hotel, they get stuck perpetually at a certain place. But we want to try fast track that. We want to give our future church planters a platform where after 6 weeks they can have 100 people in a building with a kids program, with a worship team, with a welcome team. We want to set things up in a way that people come for that first Sunday, so an impression is made to a degree that they want to come back. Because very controversially, my team would know this, the goal of our Sunday experience isn't to get people saved. The goal of our Sunday experience isn't to get them redeemed or delivered or whatever. Exactly. The goal of our Sunday experience is to get them to come back. Because we know, we've seen this time and time again in our church, that when they come back the second time, when they come back the third time, when they come back the fourth time, after the fourth or fifth time, they're done. Like, they're getting saved. Like, there's no way. They're just game over. Yeah. Because once they're in the process, once they're coming back, and they're coming back because maybe they don't verbalize it like this, but they're sensing something of God, it's just inevitable that they'll get saved. But what happens is, and I understand why we do this, we as Christians, we try to deliver the full package in an hour and a half. In other words, we want them to get saved. We want them to get delivered. We want them to get broke free of their addictions. We want them to get discipled. We want to get them sent out all in the same service. I mean, it's the first time in church and you're getting ready to send them to China on a mission trip. And so we overload people, we freak them out, and they run away, and then never come back. But when we do things in a way with our Sunday experience that gets people to come back, we earn the right to minister to them for a lifetime. Because when they come back, their kids come back, and their kids grow up in the church, and their kids will probably get married, and their kids will come to the church. Once they keep coming back, then rather than having one Sunday to try to do everything, we get 10 years. We get 5 years. We get who knows many years. We get a longer period of time to journey with people on this thing called discipleship. So the goal of a Sunday experience really is to get people to come back. Again, this is a major paradigm shift for most people. This is a very different way of viewing Sunday. And like I said, it's not the only way. This is just how we go about it with ARC. But as you think about then, how do you build, what do you need to do, some practical things, what do you need to do to build a Sunday experience that is conducive for people coming back? Okay, because we can talk about, until the cows come home, what doesn't work, what drives people away. But let's talk about what we can do practically to have people come back. And again, when people are launching with the ARC, these are some of the things we train them with as to what they need to have on their launch Sunday to ensure people do come back. So there's 8 things I'm going to give you, 8 things that we do, 8 things we need to do to have that wow factor on Sunday. And like I say, there will be, there's always going to be this tension, I think, sometimes when we talk about such subject matter, because for some reason we tend to think that, church should be depressive, melancholic. Sometimes we think spirituality needs to be depressing. And sometimes we think that if we're too excellent with our Sunday, if we're too excellent with church, that it somehow slips into some kind of entertainment thing. I'll come back to that word in a few minutes. But the reality is, the reason why we like places, the reason why we go certain places, is because there's a certain degree of excellence. There's a reason why you go to a certain hotel or over another. There's a reason why you choose a certain coffee shop. There's a reason why you choose a certain supermarket. And when you stop and look at it, a lot of it comes down to two things: customer service and overall excellence and experience. And so we can say as a church, and we can do what some Christians have done throughout the years, and kind of point at that and say that's evil. The same group of people said the electric guitar was evil, and said that the organ on this side of the church, or that side of the church, and said women should sit and men should sit separately. We can be like that and kind of just totally sideline and say it's irrelevant. We shouldn't conform to the world. We should be over here in our spiritual huddle. Or else we can learn that human beings are human beings, and certain things just work. And like the Apostle Paul, short of sinning and breaking the law, I'm going to do whatever it takes to reach people for Jesus. Right. So people like excellence, and it makes a difference. I'm going to do things with excellence. So the wow factor is nothing more than trying to, reach people, try to almost impress them in a positive sense of the term with excellence, so they will be open to coming back. Make sense? Yeah. So here's the first thing that you need to do with the wow factor. Number one, you need to know why the unchurched aren't going to church. If I were to ask you right now, you represent churches all over this country, but if you were planting a church and you go to a certain town or city, why aren't people in your city or town, why aren't they going to church? It's a very interesting question, isn't it? Have you ever sat in a coffee shop and looked around? I often do this in my town. And look at people. Look at old people, look at young people, look at non-Irish people, Irish people. And I ask the question, why isn't that person in my house? Why isn't that person in my house? Sometimes one of the things I've done in the past, I've actually asked someone, I built up a relationship. I remember there was this business owner in Navan that I kind of became friendly with. I just said, do you mind if I ask you some questions just to learn? He said, yeah. I asked him, why wouldn't you come to our church? Or any kind of church? That's a great question. Why aren't people going to your church? Because if you're going to be successful in ministry, you need to kind of figure that out. You need to know why people aren't going. There's some general reasons that I think are kind of global, particularly in the Western world. For example, and this was based on, again, another survey that was done mainly in the US years ago. But, for example, when people were asked what were the five major reasons why they wouldn't go to church, they said the first thing is because the experience is boring.
It's old-fashioned as well, they say.
Yeah, it's boring. So, in other words, rather than sitting there gripped by this experience, they're constantly referring to their watch. If you've got a Sunday experience, people are constantly looking at your watch, you've got a problem. Because time should be irrelevant. Yeah. One of the best compliments someone can pay our Sunday experience is when they say something like, it was like being in the cinema. I didn't even realize time went by. Brilliant. Not because what they got was some movie made by Marvel, but because it was the content of our Sunday was so engaging, the last thing they were thinking about was anything else or being anywhere else, because they were so engrossed in what was happening. So the first thing is the experience is boring. The second thing is that people are unfriendly. There you go. Come worship the Jesus that loves you, but I'm nasty.
Yeah.
It just, and sometimes we it's like I used to work in retail, and I was a manager in a sports shop, and we would do this thing where we'd have it's called a mystery shopper or secret shopper. So you're familiar with this? And what we did that was because the company realized that when we're working in the shop every single day, we don't see the paint coming off the wall. We don't see the broken stool. We don't see the merchandising done wrong, because we're so focused, like we're that close to it, we can't stand back and get a good perspective. So they'd send in a mystery shopper and they'd rate all the store and rate the customer service, because their perspective was different, and they would give us a clearer view as to what was really happening. And we'd normally have a whole list of notes as to what we would have to do in order to get better. And one of the developmental purposes in that was that over time, we as managers, we tried to make that list smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. How? By preempting the kind of things the mystery shopper would see. So we forced ourselves to stand back and look at the store and look at it in that way. One of the things we don't realize is that the exact same thing happens in church, because people come and we're so like, what's the song for the day in the keyboard? Do you know what I'm saying? What's the slide? We're so, look at the micro thing that we miss the macro. And we kind of don't appreciate that, even though you may have a great worship team and a great, preacher, and you may have a great kids ministry, your welcome team are unfriendly and mean. That makes a difference. People are unfriendly because it creates the sense that people are, somehow spiritually elite. And you have to train your people to be friendly. You have to tell your people to be friendly. You have to, you have to embody it yourself, but you have to constantly remind people that being friendly is a necessary part of reaching people for Jesus. In fact, I believe kindness is one of the fruits of the Spirit, So church is boring, experience is boring, number 2. Members are unfriendly, number 3. They think church wants something from them. In other words, they only want my money. They want my money. And again, if you're going to plan a church or if you're leading a church, you got to think through that, because most people are waiting for the offering. And how you do the offering and how you address the offering is absolutely essential to the growth of the church. One of the things that we do in Lighthouse, and we've done for many, many years now, is our rhetoric is, we're going to take your offering. If you're our guest today, please don't feel obliged. Or sometimes we go as far as saying, don't put your hand in your pocket. This is not for you. This is for the Lighthouse family. And that kind of drives against that kind of suspicion that we just want your money. And we don't want your money. And again, in the early days when we started that, I can remember vividly just people's reactions to that was like really surprising. Like, we don't want your money. If you're not a part of us, why would you give to us? Now secretly I have to run the cash flow and pay bills. I'm like, it would be great if you could give some money. But I knew to get them back, what's more important is they feel honestly that I don't want something from them, but in fact I want something for them. You're here, I want to give you something. I want to help you with something. I want to support you with something. I don't want anything from you, I want something for you. So experience is boring, people are unfriendly, church just wants their money, and then the last one, the kids don't enjoy it. We had a family last week come back to our church. They were in our church for a season, they left our church, and they came back to our church last Sunday, and there were several reasons, but the number one reason was because the kids weren't happy in the other church. The other church is a great church. Honestly, it's a great church, respect the church and the leadership team, but the kids program just wasn't there. For many, many years, Aline led our kids program, and we put a lot of energy and resource and time behind that. And I remember saying to her in the early days, as we made this transition philosophically, that what I want you to achieve is an experience whereby the next Sunday, the kids are jumping, they're bouncing up and down their parents' heads on Sunday morning saying, bring us to church. That's, so, not that the Bible isn't important or the kids learning memory verses or whatever, but the ultimate goal for me, as it pertains to Sunday, is that the result is kids are going home and jumping on their parents' heads saying, bring us back to church. And many, many times we've seen people come and get saved because their kids wanted to come back.
Why did they leave in the first place?
Their family didn't like the music.
My fault.
Which is fine, you know what I mean? Especially Christians have their preferences and they have their little things, whatever. But the point was, it was really encouraging to hear, that our kids program was so strong and does this so well. And literally, they're actually going to come back. Which is really awkward.
We're willing to compromise in their musical taste.
So you gotta think about why people aren't coming to church. And again, I know that in Ireland, people have never experienced Christian church. The vast majority of them, they've only experienced perhaps a Catholic or, a traditional Protestant, form of church. But nonetheless, they have experienced service, customer service, and service in general. And when people come into our buildings, no matter how big or how small they are, they have expectations. Like, no mother is going to be at peace sitting through a service if they walk into the kids' church and there's one kids worker.
Yeah, sure.
And there's a toaster and knives lying around. Do you know what I'm saying? For some churches, the kids thing is a byproduct. You put it over there, we hide them because they're not important. They're not there. Just get them out of the way so they have their parents. My parents don't come back if their kids aren't safe.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Parents, particularly again mothers, just will not be able to fully engage with the experience in the adult service or main church if their kids are not, it's a sense, the feeling is their kids are completely safe. And they won't come back if the kids don't enjoy it, obviously. So it's essential that we know, why aren't people coming to church? And if they do come to church, why aren't they coming back? And this is a question that we started asking years ago. This is a question even like some of the staff team here from our church are here today will tell you. We spent at least 3 or 4 hours even last week going through this again on some other issues. About, okay, how can we get metrics? How can we get hard facts? How can we get just real numbers in this particular part of our service to ask the question, why aren't these people coming back? So you need to know that. You need to be brave enough to ask those questions and address those tensions. Okay, so the second thing then, so that's number 1. The second thing is this. You need to impress them in the first 10 minutes. This goes back to the first impression idea. We know that psychologically, it's just true. Whether it be a TV show, whether it be a shop, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be salt, no matter what it is, people make their mind up as to whether or not they're going to engage with something in the first 10 minutes. Fact. You can't change that. You can deny that, you can argue that, I'm going to ignore that, as much as a man says I'm going to ignore the gravity, jump off a cliff, splat. That's just a fact. We have to think very strategically as we plan life-giving churches. What is the impression that we made on them in the first 10 minutes? And how can I can't control everything. I can't control the rain in Ireland. If it's rain, it's going to rain. Do you know what I'm saying? But for example, one of the things we do is our team won't stand in the doorway waiting for people to come in the rain. They go out with umbrellas and they get people out of their cars with umbrellas and escort them into the building in the rain. Very often they'll go out when a mother comes, with the kids in the car seats, and they'll carry in car seats. They're proactive in going above and beyond what's normal to try to help people get into our building. That's an impression. So you have to think very strategically about what is the first impression and how can you be all over that in such a way that you impress them to a point. Again, I mean literally, I don't mean just impress as in like, wow, isn't that so great? That's part of it, but actually impress means to mark, to touch, to affect. I mean that you mark, you touch, affect them in a way that they go, wow, didn't expect this from church. Or one of the things I strive for is that the best customer service in Navan should be our church. Because we serve the best servant. I think Ronald McDonald is a good example. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came to lay down his life to serve the world. We should reflect that in our car park, in our doorstep, in our kids' church, and so on and so forth. So making the first impression is absolutely essential. Number 3, energy and resources. Energy and resources in the morning, especially as you begin, are very limited. And you think strategic about where you put them. One of the things that we would say is that you can do a lot of great things on a Sunday, but there's 2 things that if you don't do, you won't have a growing church. Number 1 is great music. Number 2 is great kids. If you don't have great music, you don't have great kids, you don't have a growing church. End of story. Again, the reason is because in Ireland in particular, we're a very musical nation. I would say to our team all the time that even if people don't like the style, they will appreciate the excellence. Like I'm a musician, I come from a musical family, I don't like all styles of music, but when something is played well, even if it's the genre of music I like the least, because it's played well, I appreciate it, I respect it, I engage with it because it's done well. And so we can't be everyone's favourite band on Sunday morning, we got to be a contemporary one. What we can do is our level of passion for God and our excellence in executing that gift for God is gain people's admiration, respect. And wow, these guys have put effort into this. And ultimately what that does is, as time goes on, that breaks down the walls to where they might be able to worship with that music. Understand there's a difference between, we understand as Christians that worship is anything that we do to glorify God. We don't need music to worship God. There's no such thing as worship music. There's music, and we use music to worship.
That's good.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I can sit and eat an apple and I can use it to worship God. I can be clipping my toes and I can use it to worship God. Worship isn't what I do, it's why I do it. But for the non-believer coming in, for the person trying to get back the second week, they have no framework for that. They just see music. And so if your worship leader's going off in a 20-minute rant about the mountain in the book of Ezekiel and God's promise for the rivers to flow, what are you on about, man? You've lost it. And so who you pitch your music towards and the level of excellence is really, really important. That's something you have to do really well. The second thing, like I said, is is great kids. And we would even say, in terms of, and with some things we'll train church planters in, is that it has to be top notch from day one. Many of us who are on the ARC lead team, we didn't plant with ARC, we all have our different stories, and we got to a place where we are now, and we're going forward, and we're constantly learning and tweaking. But one of the things we'll be saying to those guys and girls who do plant with us is, this is what you need to do day one to go further and faster than we've ever gone. You have to have great music, and you have to have great music. Even the preaching can be like not as great as it should be. If you have great kids and great music, you know, you've heard it said about how love covers a multitude of sins. Well, I'll give you a new verse. You know, great music and great kids covers a multitude of sins also. Fact.
Covers a multitude of bad preaching.
Number 4. Following on from that with regards to your kids ministry, your kids ministry needs to be well staffed, safe, clean and fun. It can't be 2 of these, it can't be 1 of these, it can't be 3 of these, it has to be all 4. It has to be well staffed. When your parents, the people you're trying to reach, the people in your community, who for whatever reason have finally made the decision to come to church, when they turn up at your kids' sign-in area, okay, there's a whole bunch of things they're thinking. They're making judgments, they're making assumptions, they're making all sorts of decisions based on what they're seeing. How your kids sign up happens. In terms of, is there someone there to greet them? Is there a system? Or do they just kind of just walk in and just, you know? Or one of the things I often see at churches is that some person will walk over and say, hey, how are you? Okay, leave your kid in. And then just walk off with the kid. There's no form, there's no name, there's no details, there's no sense of anyone could just walk in here and take my kid. You know, another thing is that sometimes churches have like a whole team of people, but you can't tell them apart. Because we're all wearing the same plain clothes. So t-shirts are essential. You know, whether it be a certain colour or you go get them printed, but that it's obvious that the kids' church is well staffed. There's, you know, because one of the things that parents now in Ireland are becoming more and more aware of is kids to adult ratios. Obviously, the child protection thing is massive now, and it should be.
Yes.
We don't complain, that's good. It's forced the church.
Yeah.
It's best practice, so I'm a fan of that and with that 100%. But it's also educating parents, especially religious institutions, to be thinking along those lines. Like, don't forget about all the scandals. Don't forget that the industry that we're in is church.
Yeah.
And so entrusting your kids to a church for an hour every week is a really big deal for most non-Christians. It's not just, I'll drop my kids. It's a significant step. And so if they're not getting the sense that it's safe, there's workers who are trained, who speak English, there's forms, there's some kind of system, then, you know, it's actually never going to clean. Again, one of the things that often you see is that churches will, you know, particularly if they're mobile, is they'll get some rooms, some back of some hotel somewhere, and there's tables and there's chairs and there's objects, all of which are dangerous and could fall and potentially kill a child. You know, and we don't see that because we're just, you know, oh, we love Jesus, whatever, and He's going to protect our kids. Well, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be happy if that was the attitude of my kids' church team. That we're going to allow some dangerous objects because Jesus is going to protect our kids. No, we need to protect our kids, and it's our responsibility to protect our kids. And so the kids' church area needs to be clean and it needs to be safe. And parents see these things, and last of all, fun. Because at the end of the day, if you have a well-staffed, clean and safe kids area, but it's boring, they're never going there. Fun. Not just beneficial, not just spiritual, not just, because sometimes, depending on the kids' church worker you have in your team, or if you are a kids' church worker, the number one priority is getting to love Jesus and serve Jesus. That's good, but if you're not having fun, you're never going to be able to get into that place because they're never going to come back. You need to have fun. If they have fun, they come back. If they come back every single week, now you have how many months, how many years to help them follow Jesus.
That's good. Plenty of sweets.
Huh?
Plenty of sweets.
Plenty of sweets. Bribery would be good. I'm a big fan of bribery.
Sorry for interrupting, but it's not either or. God's word is amazing and it should be fun as we are presenting it. You don't think of kids' work as now we're having fun, now we're having the Word of God. We need to make the Word of God fun because it is amazing, the most amazing Word you'll ever get. And it's a sin to borrow a kid with the Word of God.
It's good. Note then, number 5 is your message. One of the transitions we made was from calling our messages sermons to messages. Because even again, in the Christian world, you know, I'm going to preach a sermon. You don't think twice about that word. But for a person outside the church, a sermon is a religious attack on something. You know, it's a berating. It's someone on some big pedestal pointing down from the holy place to mere sinners. So you need to think about your message again, and this is really important because and I'm a communicator and I love communicating God's word, but there's a difference between teaching people the Bible and teaching the Bible to people. That's a very, and there's some great examples out there of communicators that are really trying to do that. In other words, not digressing too much, you can get up as a communicator and your major concern can be, I need to get the Bible across to people. And what will happen is you bring great theology, you bring great content, and you normally preach in an expository way and try to, do all that kind of stuff. But you're not really, the people are a byproduct, they're secondary. Your primary concern is getting the Bible to people. Whereas when your primary concern is the people, and people getting the Bible, how you approach it is radically different. Because now, it doesn't matter how good the theology is, if you don't get it, it means nothing.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so you approach it from an angle of, if I know my audience, if I know what they're coming from, if I know what they're thinking, if I know where they're at, if I know their level of theological whatever, then I can pitch it, frame it, communicate, pass it along, whatever way you want to, I can get it across in a way that's more impactful to them. That make sense?
Yeah.
And so I would just say be careful of using the Sunday platform to do a Bible study. Because most people aren't interested in what the Bible says. Can I just be controversial? Most people don't care what the Bible says. They honestly don't care. And I love it in a non-lovable sense. In other words, it frustrates me when a pastor gets up in the church and says, this is what the Bible says. Who cares? Do you know who cares what the Bible says? Christians do. I care. You should care. But John and Mary, they don't give a damn what the Bible says. We need to win their hearts and bring the Word of God to a place where they see its authority and then use its authority to communicate to them. We need to bring them on a journey first. Whereas if you in the very first sentence go, the Bible says, you've lost them. Does that make sense? I'm not saying you shouldn't use the Bible to preach. It's the Word of God. It's a living and active Word. We do. I'm just saying the way you approach it is you start with the people first. And you communicate God's truth to them. Your message needs to be interesting, needs to be clear, needs to be relevant, needs to be entertaining. Thinking, preaching shouldn't be entertaining. Well, when you look up the definition of entertaining, it simply means to capture and hold people's attention. That's all entertaining means. How do you think our church service would be more entertaining?
Amen.
Our teaching is more entertaining, our kids are more entertaining. To capture and hold people's attention. So it should be interesting, clear, relevant, entertaining, and it should be biblical. One of the things that I had this conversation with someone yesterday who just was in our church. They're a Christian. They didn't become a Christian in our church. They joined our church from another church, and they're really struggling with our model, how we do things in this regard. And we were talking about our Sunday experience and why it's built for the non-believer and why we do things, why we do stuff. But one thing I said was but I said to this person, well, you look at our preaching, even though we go to we preach to the people, we don't hold back. We're not a seeker-sensitive church. Like our messages in Lighthouse aren't be the best you that you can be because you're great. Do you know what I'm saying? Get your teeth whitened when you're at it. You know what I'm saying? We're in a series at the moment, and it's a post-Easter series, meaning we built this series, we put it together intentionally to get people who came on Easter to come back. Okay? And so far, 2 weeks in, the two topics we've covered are sin and the blood of Jesus.
That's good.
Now, what I didn't do is get there and say, Romans 3:23 says, and Romans 6:23 says, and Romans 10:9 says, and John, the whole, what we used to do. No, I did it on a completely different angle. and the same with the blood of Jesus. So it's not like we don't communicate the Bible, it's that we communicate it in a way that makes sense, it's entertaining, that captures and holds the imagination and attention of people. Because then what happens is, all of a sudden, rather than switching off for your message, they're enthralled by it. The sixth thing then is prayer teams. Even though the Sunday experience is built to a certain, purpose, we must never underestimate the power of prayer. This is a spiritual war. Like I said, I'm starting today, and these sessions aren't in order. The first session that we do, which Paul and Priscilla will cover when they're here, but that will be in terms of order, is the importance of spiritual warfare. Then you plant a church, the first thing you do is you win the spiritual war through prayer. And so the same is true at Sunday. If you want to succeed in building God's kingdom, and not your own kingdom, you need God's help. You need God's power. And just because the Sunday experience isn't a free-flowing Pentecostal meeting does not mean God's power is not available and present.
Sure.
One of the things that I was sharing with somebody yesterday in the same meeting was the church is not Sunday. And I'll often say this from the platform in our church, that if you judge Lighthouse by its Sunday experience, you totally underestimate who we are as a people. Because our Sunday experience is a component in the church that we have decided will exist to reach those who are far from God. That's why it exists. So you may not see people speaking in tongues. You may not see prophecy. You may not see whatever on a Sunday morning. Just because you can't see it in the morning doesn't mean it doesn't happen in the life of the church.
Yeah, it's good.
Because we do, for example, every 4 to 6 weeks a heart and soul night, which really is church for Christians. We just do church. I often say church the classic way. Church as church used to be done for us. Rather than just doing 2 songs, we do 4 songs. Because the presence of God always falls at the end of the 3rd song. It's so punctual like that, And we give the worship leader more space to talk. So you can say something, and so on. And we have fun with that. We also do encounter weekends, which are 24-hour retreats intensely, and we will pray for it. In fact, our next Heart and Souls happen in May. The whole theme is healing. The whole night is all about healing. And and so on. Our encounter weekends, we pray people to baptize, Holy Spirit, speak in tongues. We do all those things. We don't do them on Sunday. We use Sunday to reach those who are far from God. But just because we don't do those things on Sunday doesn't mean that we don't need God's help desperately on Sunday. We need God's help desperately on Sunday, probably more than any other part of the church. So having the Sunday experience covered in prayer is so important. So we have an intercessory team in our church that will pray during our services and pray for our services. We also have a care team, a kind of pastoral team who are praying during our service. We also have prayer teams who are there in our service, who in our what we call our response time are available people to go and get prayer for. So our services, even though they're trying to reach people, are absolutely saturated in and by prayer. And again, if we're going to launch life-giving churches, we're going to grow and come back, prayer teams need to be covering all the services. Prayer needs to be, if I were to add up how many times we pray, you'd probably be shocked, because some people kind of just judge us and think, you're just entertainment and wow services, you're just all about the surface. We must have at least, between the worship and production team praying in the morning, the pre-rehearsal prayer, the post-rehearsal prayer, then the services and all the prayer teams happening during the services, then the prayer team who actually did. We have so many levels of prayer happening every Sunday. It's actually amazing. It's amazing and totally necessary, because what we're doing is not just trying to impress someone with an entertainment experience. We're trying to save their soul forever. And the enemy doesn't want that. We need prayer. Okay, second last thing is this. Guests need to be greeted warmly. So we come back to that, the whole thing of being mean. And one of the things that we have to think about, particularly in Ireland, is this tension that I call, we have to allow people to remain anonymous but not forgotten.
Yeah, that's good.
And why I say it's particularly true in Ireland is because Irish people are warm, friendly, hospitable people. And what they don't want you to do is they don't want you to come and ask them their name or where they're from, or because it's too much. But if you forget them, they'll never come back. So they have to be anonymous, but don't forget them. And so you have to think about how you do that. So a couple of things that we've done, try, rest attention is, for example, we have a welcome team, which is generic, but during our service, we do a 1 minute welcome. And we kind of, it's cringy sometimes, but you get everyone to get up and walk around and high five someone. It's 1 minute, there's no big long conversation, oh, where are you from, and so on and so forth. It just is what it is. And then they sit in the service and they come back, whatever, you know what I mean? Another thing is how our coffee is served, how our kids' church works. I mean, acknowledging people, but knowing when not to kind of ask too many questions. Another thing is our care team. We've got a ninja team of carers. So our pastoral team are actually, they're playing like plainclothes detectives. They don't walk around with t-shirts. They're one of the only group. They're actually one of the only groups who are actually rostered officially on Sunday morning and don't wear a t-shirt. And their role is to spot the disconnected ones who are kind of and go engage them. But they're also trained that to do that, not to be like, so what was your mother's name and how much money do you have in your bank account and did you tithe today and were you baptized in the Holy Spirit? Do you know what I'm saying? That's not good. So need to be honest, I'm forgetting. One of the things that we would do as well on that front, some other ideas is that we would not ask people ever to raise their hands. This is one of my gripes personally, but the whole, I call it the pastoral manipulation thing of, all I want you to do now is put your hand up. All I want you to do now is stand up. All I want you to do now is come up. All I want you to do is follow me to this little room where I give you a little pack. It's like, no, that's lies. That's not, hand up, stand up, come up, and then go over here. No, if you want them to go over there, just tell them, go over there. Don't lead them on this string. I don't know if it's just a generational thing or it's an Irish thing. I just hate that. It's like you're trying to deceive me. It's like a cheap sell. Don't do that to me. Come on, give me some more respect here, man. So what we do in terms of salvation, for Sunday mornings, we would do something different in that we would ask everyone to bow their heads, close their eyes, and someone give their heart to Jesus, slip their hand up so I can see, and then back down. And we tell them that if they won't take the next step, they need to go to the connection team and get their pack. Does that make sense? But we don't trick them or deceive them into some kind of process that didn't sign up for. We're looking for a confession, but we're looking for something that allows them to be anonymous but not forgotten. So I got to think through things like that. Hassle-free guarantee, so some churches use connection cards. That's cool. Just make sure if you use connection cards, tell people no one's going to come to your house and visit you and sit with you for a cup of tea. No one's going to visit you in work. And the pastor's going to show up one day in your office. We use we have a connection team. The team with iPads. Again, people can go over to them. We tell them on the platform in our service, all we want is your first name and your email address, and we always tell them, we're not going to spam attack you with a million emails, we're going to send you one email, the email's going to say thank you for coming, it's going to give you some just information about upcoming events, that's it. We say that from the platform. We tell them exactly what they're going to get. No lead them along the string, that's what they're going to get. They go, and we also give them free chocolate for that. On big Sundays, we give them a free €5 Costa card.
So smart.
Some people call it bribery. I call it encouragement.
No Starbucks.
Another thing we've done recently, taken from Chris Hodges, at our Easter service we actually did a survey. So we did a survey, which is really cool, and the survey helped us get some information around if we're actually in the process of looking to open our first campus, our first church plant in Lighthouse, and so it gave us information around where people are. It also helped us prepare for a series we're going to do this year called You Asked For It. And we did it already, but we surveyed the Christians. We wanted to hear what the non-Christians wanted to hear teaching about it. Because I just can't keep preaching series on the Holy Spirit, and Christians still don't get it. So that was good. But the other thing was that on the card we had A, B, C, and D, and they could tick either one of the letters, and they didn't know what the word to the end of the message. And so basically I ended my message with, this is Chris Hodges' material, it's great. A is you're already a Christian, B is you're considering to become a Christian. No, A is you're already a Christian, B is you want to become a Christian, you want to become a Christian today, C is that you still want time to think about it, and D is you're never going to become a Christian. And you make everyone tick the box, and you go through, and for those who tick B, you ask them to pray, they pray, sinner's prayer, For those who tick C, you say, hey, come back next week to the series. We've made it for you. And D, we want you to, the reason why we put this down for you is because we want to confront you with the reality of your own heart. that you're not even open to ever believing what God is doing. And also said, we're going to pray for you because there are people here today who last Easter were D's. Just messed them, you know what I'm saying? Just messed them. And that was really great, and we just, that survey has produced loads of information for us. So, but again, if you're going to do a survey, if you're going to do a connection card, have the whole church fill out. So we did 4 services for Easter, and we had everyone fill it out, and the team filled out 4, you know, and some of those survey cards were interesting as the team started messing.
Yeah.
One of your series about aliens, the Nephilim.
No, do that.
Where's Elvis?
That was all Glenn.
You know it's Glenn.
I was deciding
But it's
to go
important,
like
the point
it.
I'm making, guys, in number 7 is that if you're going to do a system in a way that the only person filling out the city card isn't the new person.
Yeah, it's good.
Because if they're the only person filling out, then everyone knows who they are. So if you're going to do a connection card, if you're going to do a survey, make sure you say, everyone take out the card, everyone fill it out, and that way people can feel safe. They can feel anonymous, but not forgotten. If you're going to do the hand thing, do a hand thing, but do one in a way that allows them to remain anonymous, not forgotten. If they have to come up and take steps that you told them they would have to take, not only have you deceived them, but they're not anonymous.
Yes.
And they'll never come back. So you rest through those things. The last thing then is this: focus on excellence. Excellence creates comfort. Like I talked about already, hotels and cafes and businesses. Excellence creates comfort. People return to the same supermarkets because they find it comfortable. Comfortable means things are clear, they're accessible, they're predictable to a degree. Believe it or not, people, if your church service every single Sunday is completely different to the last Sunday, that's not good. Liturgy has existed for a long time for a reason. People like liturgy. Now at the same time, if your liturgy never changes, then people will disengage. But you got to be careful that your service has a predictable flow. Because do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, particularly as Pentecostals, we think we should mix up every single week, and it's good to be creative, mix it up. But if you mix up too much, that sense of comfort is gone. Then that messes with people because they don't know what's coming next. I think excellence is also important because excellence is an attitude of the heart. Excellence is a part of worship. Excellence is communicating to those people who came that our God is worth it, and we're under-resourced and we're understaffed and we're underpinned by culture, but still we push through and still we fight above our weight because we believe that God deserves our absolute best. And so our dream team don't show up and volunteer, they serve. They don't just give us leftovers, they give us their best. Why? Because God is worth it. So I think it's very important because excellence, I often say this to our team, this way: excellence glorifies God in that regard, but it inspires men. When you do something in excellence, and you do it for God's glory, He gets the glory, but the excellence also inspires people. So excellence is key. And again, excellence is simply doing the best you can what you have. Excellence isn't being Hillsong or being. Excellence is taking what God has given you and doing the best you can. I remember when we had no lights, and we got Linus lights in AGI, and there were 6 crappy power cans that we got from AGI, €30. We couldn't afford €30 power cans at the time. Man, we used to use those. You'd be amazed at how great we were with 6 power cans. I mean, if you ever want a lesson in 101 ways you can use a power can, because I personally was positional babies, you know what I'm saying? And because in that season with 40, 50, 60, 70 people and no money, excellence was doing the best I can. What I can. Does that make sense? Good little question to ask yourself in the excellence front is, what will people talk about on the way home? So John and Mary, you prayed for them, you've done the outreach, you prayer walk, you handed out the invite card, they came to Sunday experience, you've made the first impression, they've done the kids thing, they've met the welcome team, they've heard the message, they've engaged with the music, they've responded to the message, they're leaving, they're in their car. What are they talking about? And how can we affect that conversation? What I want them to say is, what I want to happen is, I want John and Mary to get in the car, and I want them to go, kids, what do you think of today's service? Wow, Dad, it was amazing. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe, blah, 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 blah. And I want John to go to Mary, actually, it was kind of like, wow, I didn't expect that from church. I want her to go, yeah, I mean, wow. Because when I can influence that conversation to that degree, I know they're coming back. Come back week 1, come back week 2, come back week 3, come back week 4, come back, they're here to stay. And in our church, we've seen this over the last couple of years. Our church has grown exponentially in this way. brand new Irish converts, because they just keep coming back. If people enjoy it, then invite everybody to know. Don't try to make you feel guilty for coming to church. Nothing frustrates me more than a pastor with a terrible church experience beating up his people for not inviting their friends. They don't invite their friends, pastor, because they're embarrassed by their church. They're not proud of it. It's irrelevant, it's disengaging, and it's boring. And they would never jeopardize their relationship with their friends by bringing them to their church. And I told somebody before, that was a key moment in my journey where I realized not even I would invite my friends to my church. I was the pastor. It's an issue. You know what I'm saying? I'm the guy leading the thing. And I wouldn't even invite my friends. I wasn't proud or confident that if I invite my friends to my church that I led, that they would be impacted. And so I changed that to a way where now I feel totally open and confident. I invite everybody to come to our church. Because I believe that when they come, they'll come back. And if they come back, they'll get saved. But think about it this way. Evangelism sometimes is nothing more than us talking about what we love. And when a non-believer or a new believer comes to our church or becomes a new believer in our church and they enjoy it, they're going to tell everyone. Like, I don't need to pay you to tell them about the movie you loved last week. Or the drink. You just talk about the things you love. So when someone comes along and they actually enjoy church, not endure church, then they tell people. And we've had people come to our church. We even had a neighbour recently complain about some sound issue. And one of the first things that came off his tongue was, but some people in their church told me great things. And I went on to discover the person they're talking about doesn't even come to our church. Their son comes to our church. So some son of some mother talking to this person created credibility for us. When there was an issue, their demeanour towards us was, we love what you're doing. And we're actually, and he even said in the phone, and we'd love to come sometime. I'm like, this is Ireland. But literally one person came and enjoyed it. That makes sense? So excellence helps that. Okay, so those are the 8 things we need to do if we're going to create a wow factor Sunday experience. Conclusion then, don't do everything you know how to do on Sunday morning. Like I said, church, it doesn't equal Sunday. If church equals Sunday, you're going to break something. Church needs to equal people. The people. So if a local church is a local people, then what the church does for the 7 days of the week is the church. If you try to do everything the church does on Sunday, like I said, you're going to break something. A great analogy that we once heard, actually, it was Billy Hornsby, who is now dead. He actually was one of the founders of the Ark. He used this incredible analogy of the showroom floor. He tells a story of how one time he was in London with John Maxwell, and he went to a Bentley dealership. And I went in this beautiful, pristine showroom floor. Everything was polished, everything was beautiful, everything was nice. They sit in these Bentleys, Of course, you sit in a Bentley, you think, I want one, or whatever. And it's just struck him that actually, church needs to be like this. Not everything that a garage does is done on the showroom floor. For example, I used to drive a Renault, and in Navan there's a wonderful Renault dealership. And I used to go get my car serviced. I'd pull up to the garage and I'd walk into the showroom floor and I would hand the person my key and the mechanic come out. He'd drive the car on the back. I never saw the back. And they'd bring me upstairs and I'd sit in this nice little leather couch and they'd give me a free cup of coffee, and as I was sitting there, they'd have all these new makes and models of cars laid out that I could look at and be entertained as I was waiting. Then all of a sudden my car would reappear and drive it off. Why? Because the purpose of the showroom floor is to sell the car. The purpose of the workshop is to fix the car.
Good.
You don't fix the car. You don't drive your car up onto the showroom floor to fixing the oil. Dismantle the engine. Does that make sense? There's a place and a time for that. That's private, that's specialised, that's safe. But people generally walk into the showroom floor. So people say, "Oh, well, that's shallow church." No, it's not being shallow church, it's about having a shallow end. If you have an phobia like water, like me, you like the shallow end. It gives you time to adjust. Me as an adult, man, I still don't like jumping into the deep end the first thing. I like to get in the shallow end, walk around, get my confidence up, and eventually I start make a way on deep end. The same is true of spirituality. We need to give people a baby pool. We need to give them a shallow end. We need to have a deep end. So what I'm saying is that the Sunday experience is just a shallow end. It's just a safe place for those who are far from God to come and experience it so that we can bring them to a journey into deeper spirituality with Jesus. So we're not a shallow church, we have a shallow end. you have to decide, if you're going to plant a church, who does Sunday exist for? Does it exist for the Christians, or does it exist for those who are not yet here? For us, we very clearly, our mantra, Sunday exists for those who are not yet here. And I think that, and I think we've proven that we'll be able to lead more and more people to experience God if we use His model, if we protect the Sunday, and always keep that value before it's for those who are here, but not neglect the valuable parts of ministry. Like I said, we do pray for baptism of the Holy Spirit. We do deliverance ministry. We do intercession. We are a Pentecostal church. What we don't do is we don't do all that on Sunday.
Yeah.
We have a shallow end. We're not a shallow church. There's depths to us. You'll only see if you jump in.
Very
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as you think about launching a life-giving Sunday service, you've got to think about a lot of factors, 8 things. And with that, I will finish.